ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 p.m. in Dakar and 7 p.m. in Cotonou. Good evening and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. First, top stories. UN General Assembly passes Ghana's proposal on reparations for transatlantic slave trade with 123 votes in favor.
And so, delegates, on this beautiful day in March, let it be recorded we did what was right for the memory of the millions who suffered the indignity of the slave trade.
Gunmen killed 9 soldiers and a police officer in Kebbi State, northwest Nigeria.
It's a very unfortunate situation. Security that are taking care of our people. This is a great loss. This is a very sad situation.
Guinea deports over 500 Sierra Leonean nationals as Mano River Union border dispute escalates, and frequent power outages disrupt daily livelihoods in Côte d'Ivoire's capital, Abidjan. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Newslink begins with the passage of Ghana's resolution to classify transatlantic slave trade as one of the gravest crimes against humanity. With 123 member states voting in favor, 3 against and 52 abstentions, the move comes on the heels of International Remembrance Day for victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. This year's theme, Justice in Action, calls on the world to confront this history with honesty and acknowledge its enduring impact. In 2007, the United Nations General Assembly formally established the observance of the day, following a resolution adopted a year earlier to commemorate the victims of slavery annually on March 25. During the ceremony held today, Wednesday, at the UN General Assembly headquarters in New York, Ghana's President John Mahama highlighted a draft proposal that seeks to declare the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslaving of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity.
And so, delegates, on this beautiful day in March, we're called to stand on the right side of history. Let it be recorded that when history beckoned, we did what was right for the memory of the millions who suffered the indignity of the slave trade and those who continue to suffer racial discrimination. Let our vote on this resolution restore their dignity and humanity. I thank you for the opportunity.
That was Ghana's President Mahama speaking at the commemoration of International Remembrance Day for victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. Meanwhile, Ghana has signed a significant defense cooperation agreement with the European Union to enhance its response to rising security threats in West African sub-region. The agreement was signed in Accra on Tuesday by Vice President Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman and EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas. It focuses on counter-terrorism, cybersecurity and broader security collaboration. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadi Detite reports.
Ghana has become the first African country to sign a defense cooperation agreement with the European Union in a move aimed at strengthening national and regional security. The agreement was signed in Accra between the EU's Foreign Policy Chief, Kaja Kallas, and Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. It focuses on counter-terrorism, cybersecurity, as well as border and maritime security. The partnership also includes logistical support for the Ghana Armed Forces, with the EU providing drones, anti-drone systems, bomb disposal equipment and motorcycles to boost operational capacity. Here is the EU's Foreign Policy Chief, Kaja Kallas.
Defense partnership is very important because it's the first one that we are signing with an African country. It shows that the security of you and security of us is very much intertwined, and we really need to cooperate. The challenges we have regarding terrorism, for example, are the same, so countering that together is in both of our interests.
Vice President Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman says the deal reflects Ghana's commitment to maintaining stability and its growing role as a key partner in regional security.
This demonstrates the strengthening collaboration between Ghana and the European Union in tackling evolving security challenges, especially in our sub-region and across the Sahel. Complex security threats and risks continue to emerge and evolve across West Africa. The recent tragic incidents involving Ghanaian traders who lost their lives in Burkina Faso serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of insecurity.
Although Ghana has largely avoided direct extremist attacks, the wider West African region remains volatile. The agreement is expected to strengthen Ghana's preparedness while supporting broader regional efforts to contain the spread of violent extremism. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
Still on diplomatic developments, Algeria's Prime Minister concludes an official visit to Niger, marked by the signing of major bilateral agreement between the two countries. The agreement were reached during the second session of the High Joint Commission for Niger-Algeria Cooperation held to strengthen diplomatic and economic ties. During the meeting, Algiers and Niamey formalized the resumption of cooperation across several strategic sectors, including diplomacy and economic ties. Augustin Koli tells us more.
The visit to Niger by the Algerian Prime Minister laid the foundations for cooperation in several sectors. First, in health, Algeria plans to strengthen Niger's health capacities with telemedicine, human capacity building, and the nation kidney transplant project. In terms of security, both countries are committed to strengthening their cross-border security. The ministries of youth, sports, and culture of both countries will also work to bring Algerian and Nigerian youth closer together. On the digital front is the interconnection of networks via the Trans-Sahara fiber optic backbone to digitally open up the region through a digital state-of-the-art infrastructure. The major event of this visit was the laying of the foundation stone for a 40-megawatt power plant in Guru Banda to support the capital Niamey. Nigerian Prime Minister Ali Mohamed Lamizane and Algerian Prime Minister Sylvie Greb then took part in the business forum, which brought together economic operators from Niger and Algeria. After being received in audience by the head of state, General Abdurrahman Chiani, the Algerian Prime Minister termed the visit as satisfactory.
I would like to reiterate my satisfaction with the result of this session, which represents a further step towards building a fruitful and diversified partnership between our two brotherly countries. I would like to emphasize the importance of monitoring, implementing and addressing the conclusions of all the agreed upon areas in order to fulfill the aspirations of our two brotherly countries for greater solidarity, greater complementarity, and greater development.
At the close of this second session of the High Joint Commission for Niger-Algeria Cooperation, several agreements were signed between the two countries.
Augustin Koli voiced a report as filed in by our Niamey correspondent, Yakuba Abibulai. And still in Niger, the southern city of Zinda has been experiencing a fuel shortage for nearly a week. In this part of the country, fuel smuggled from Nigeria is widely used and readily available due to low cost. The soaring fuel prices in Nigeria have had repercussions in Zinda. Details with Sankule Janko.
Traffic has been at a standstill in Zinda for the past few days due to the scarcity of smuggled gasoline from neighboring Nigeria, which is cheaper. The city's gas stations were quickly overwhelmed by customers. Long lines are required to fill up a tank. Abubakar Mame Abba, a resident of Zinda, experienced the situation firsthand.
This is the second time. Last night I came, but I noticed there was a crowd, so I couldn't get anything. And even now, I'm here. I don't know how it works because I see there is a queue. It's a bit chaotic. I really can't wait to get my supplies.
As gas stations begin to run out of fuel, civil society in Zinda fear unrest, given the fuel shortage which could worsen in the region. Salah Hamza Abubakar, an activist, speaks about the crisis.
Our appeal to the authorities is to ensure the creation of state-run stations. The state could establish smaller stations, mini pumps, or give investors the freedom to invest in hydrocarbons in our country. This could reduce these kinds of crowds and the resulting shortages and unavailability of fuel at our various service stations.
The residents of Niger's second-largest city are now waiting for a solution from the authorities, as the country is an oil producer.
Sankule Janko voiced that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now to issues of insecurity in Nigeria. 9 soldiers and a police officer were killed in a deadly ambush by gunmen in Kebbi State. The incident occurred on Tuesday night, raising fresh concerns over insecurity in Nigeria's northwest region. Our Abuja correspondent, Yechin Sasecho, has the details in this report.
The attack occurred in the Giromasa community of Shanga local government area, where security operatives were reportedly targeted during an operation. Governor of Kebbi State, Nasir Idris, condemns the incident, describing it as a tragic loss and an attack on the peace and security of the state.
It is a very unfortunate situation. Security that are taking care of our people, guarding people so that the people of Kebbi State will sleep with their 2 eyes closed.
The troops had been deployed following intelligence on the presence of armed men in the area before they were ambushed. Governor Idris also assures that the state government will provide necessary support to the families of the fallen security personnel.
Our government of Kebbi State will do everything possible to assist the family. It is a great loss. It is a very sad situation.
Security agencies have since intensified operations in the area to track down those responsible and restore calm. For the BLADR, Yechin Sasecho reporting.
In another development, nearly 1,000 Sierra Leonean nationals have returned to their home country after being deported by Guinean authorities. Many of them were stranded at the Pamlap border between Sierra Leone and Guinea, awaiting clearance to re-enter Sierra Leone, with many facing uncertain and difficult conditions. The mass deportation comes just days after a high-level tripartite meeting involving Sierra Leone, Guinea and Liberia aimed at easing border tensions and strengthening cooperation within the Mano River Union. Abdullah Hassan completes the story.
According to eyewitnesses, many of those arrested were accused of contributing to unrest in urban areas and were labeled as idle or unemployed. This operation has caused panic among families, including children and the elderly, who were caught up in the sweep. In an official statement issued late Tuesday, the government of Sierra Leone announced that Guinean authorities notified it of ongoing clearing of formal settlements, including the identification and return of undocumented foreign residents. The government says the Sierra Leonean embassy in Conakry is working with Guinean authorities to ensure the process is conducted in an orderly and humane manner with full respect for the rights and dignity of its citizens. Observers suggest that this move reflects ongoing tensions over migration and economic pressures in Guinea's cities, where growing urban populations have strained public services. Critics, however, argue that the deportations unfairly target hardworking and law-abiding immigrants. Humanitarian groups are urging both governments to ensure that due process is followed as stranded deportees await assistance at the border. This development comes amid increasing border conflict within the Mano River Union countries.
Abdullah reporting there. Meanwhile, the government of Liberia is reinforcing security measures along its border with Guinea, citing rising regional tensions linked to an ongoing border dispute. While urging citizens to remain calm, authorities emphasize that the situation is being managed with caution and a commitment to diplomatic engagement. The dispute, under close monitoring since early March 2026, centers on concerns at the Liberia-Guinea entry point, an area regarded as a sensitive flashpoint for regional stability within the Mano River Union. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
A high-level delegation was dispatched to Conakry to engage Guinean authorities, but Guinean soldiers are still staying on the Liberian side of the disputed entry point. To counter this move, Liberia's Justice Minister Oswald Toy announced that joint security forces have increased their presence along the border. He says the Liberian forces are focusing on maintaining order and preventing any potential disturbances.
Our government has taken additional actions to deploy and reinforce the joint security of our borders to maintain calm and ensure a robust presence in the area. Our goal is not escalation, but the restoration of confidence and the protection of our people. The government of Liberia calls upon all its citizens, especially those living along the border, to exercise restraint
Despite these diplomatic aims, the government has raised alarm over the spread of misleading content on social media, including AI-generated images falsely depicting conflict scenarios. Minister Tua warns that such content poses a serious threat to national security by inciting fear and confusion among the population.
Statements and analysis intended to inflame and undermine our efforts will not be tolerated. The issue of conflict and threat of escalation is sensitive and must be treated with the utmost patriotism. The government calls upon all to desist from making statements that will create instability and escalate the situation.
Authorities reaffirmed that Liberia's security institutions remain vigilant and fully committed to safeguarding the nation's sovereignty while pursuing peaceful diplomatic solutions to the dispute. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Elsewhere in Côte d'Ivoire, frequent power outages are causing anger among the population, particularly in the economic capital of Abidjan. For the past few weeks, several neighborhoods of the city have experienced power cuts. The situation disrupts the daily lives of residents, both in households and in the informal sector. For more development, here's Usman Umar's report.
While returning from work, this resident once again finds his house plunged into darkness due to another power outage. This is an almost daily occurrence in his neighborhood in Yopogon, a suburb of Abidjan, a situation he now considers increasingly difficult to bear.
It's very hot. Even where I live, I know there is no electricity there before I arrive.
Not far away, in a sewing workshop, a man in his 50s, shirtless in front of his sewing machine, also expresses exasperation. The increasingly frequent power cuts are affecting his business.
No, I'm not the one losing clients. It's putting me so far behind that I can't even work to get what I need each day. It's setting me back a lot.
Faced with the situation, the Director General of Côte d'Ivoire Energies cites technical constraints linked to the high demand for energy across the country and ongoing maintenance operations on the electrical network. Nomori Sidibe says,
we were operating the public service at near capacity, so when an unexpected event occurs, it obviously creates imbalances. What's unusual this time is that it's recurring and the duration is obviously longer than the incidents we have seen. So this isn't a production deficit. It's primarily an issue within the distribution network, which is under considerable strain during this period due to population growth and the high demand associated with the heat. It's a situation we will gradually address, with investments currently being made, thanks to the funds mobilized by the Ivorian government.
To permanently resolve the country's intermittent power outages, the government has announced increased investment in the energy sector. The goal is to boost energy production capacity and modernize infrastructure.
A report from our Abidjan correspondent Marcel Ariston Bland, voiced by Usman Umar. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Here's a reminder of the top stories. UN General Assembly passes Ghana's proposal on reparations for transatlantic slave trade with 123 votes in favor. Gunmen killed 9 soldiers and a police officer in Kebbi State, northwest Nigeria. Guinea deports over 500 Sierra Leonean nationals as Madu River Union border dispute escalates, and frequent power outages disrupt daily livelihoods in Côte d'Ivoire's capital, Abidjan. And still ahead, we do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We are streaming live on WADR.org and for the live streamings on YouTube and Facebook. The migration issues. The Gambia Immigration Department is validating a new training manual on migrant smuggling. This initiative aims to help officers detect and respond to smuggling cases while complying with national laws and international human rights standards. The forward exercise is supported by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. From Banjul, Sang Danamendi reports.
According to officials, the new manual provides structured guidance for detecting, investigating, and responding to cases of migrant smuggling in alignment with both Gambian law and international protocols. Binta KJ Barrow, Assistant Commissioner of the Gambia Immigration Department GID, describes the manual as a significant advancement in response to the rising trend of irregular migration.
The Gambia continues to face evolving and complex migration dynamic that a significant rise in irregular migration activities with over almost 3,000 migrants being intercepted in 2025 alone.
A crime prevention officer with the UNODC in Dakar, Abimbola Adawami, also endorses the initiative, highlighting the importance of standardized procedures in combating migrant smuggling.
What we are doing here is building a practical tool that will support officers on the front lines, at borders, airports, and in investigations to respond effectively.
However, experts point out weaknesses in legal framework, including absence of strict laws for prosecuting smuggling offences. In response, Assistant Superintendent of Migration Alkali Jame indicates that the manual will help address these shortcomings.
It is going to prepare the GID in the upcoming bill that we are expecting to be passed.
This initiative follows a 2025 assessment by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, which identified significant gaps in the guidance available for frontline officers. In 2025, the Gambia Immigration Department intercepted thousands of suspected migrants, many from West Africa, who were using the Gambia as a transit route to Europe. For WADR, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest interview focuses on a reparations resolution proposal which Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama is submitting to the UN General Assembly today, calling for the transatlantic slave trade to be formally recognized as one of the gravest crimes against humanity. The resolution adopted at the recent African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, seeks to secure financial reparations and restitution for the enduring economic, social, and developmental harm caused by slavery and colonialism. Our guest is Desiree Asugbavi, the Advocacy Office Advisor for Africa at Open Society Foundations, OSF.
I think this is a highly consequential moment for the African Union, I would say for Africa in general, because it is going to test whether Africa as a continent can convert what we see as a long-standing moral claim into a disciplined multilateral position. Publicly, Ghana's initiative is already backed by the African Union. Over the last African Union summit, and as you know, the AU has actually transformed the 2025 year of reparation to a decade of justice and reparation, and that creates a momentum.
If the United Nations formally declares the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity, which the proposer is seeking, would this change existing international legal frameworks or obligations?
I must say that if this happened, it will be politically and normatively very significant. Of course, it's not going to write a new international law overnight, but politically it's going to be a very great move. We know that the law has already moved, parts of the way. For example, we know that the Durban Declaration said that slavery and the slave trade, especially the transatlantic slave trade, are crime against humanity. We also know that the Rome Statutes that create the International Criminal Court are already treated enslavement as a crime against humanity. So I would say this proposal is not inventing a new legal idea, but it is elevating and sharpening the recognition of what we are calling the highest multilateral level.
The resolution is being presented today, which is the International Remembrance Day for Victims of Slavery and the Transatlantic Slave Trade, commemorated annually on March 25. How important is this symbolic timing in influencing global opinion and diplomatic momentum?
The timing is extremely important. It is important because in diplomacy, symbolism is very important. The International Day of Remembrance is already a UN-recognized day for reflection on the history and legacy of slavery and transatlantic slave trade. Now, presenting the resolution in that context lifts the issue above routine diplomacy and place it firmly in the realm of global moral reckoning. It is also raising the reputational cost of opposition to the move. On a day dedicated to remembrance, states opposing even the commemorative historical of preambular language risk appearing hostile, not just to the text, but to the truth-telling itself. So public reporting from President Mahama's New York remark show already that he deliberately connect the resolution to the broader struggle against the division of Black history.
Some Western countries have expressed concerns about the implications, particularly around reparations. What forms could reparative justice realistically take if this resolution gains traction?
Yeah, it's true. We realize some opposition, especially around the wording of reparation, because we have seen the history that some countries that have had some abuse from other regions have claimed pecuniary reparations. But beyond reparation in terms of money, we need to recognize that what happened in history is shaping the current situation in the world. So reparation needs to be seen in a very broader way. So it's not just about paying back what has been, damaged, to the continent, which is also important. But we need to bring in the question the consequence of the situation, the slavery, the colonialism on the modern life, the injustice that is a result of the structural diminishing of this part of the world. Now, if it fails, the setback will be political. It can only expose how much people are not serious about telling the truth. What is happening now is no longer just about whether the world remembers slavery, but it is about whether the world is prepared to name it honestly, to confront it, and leave the consequence that can come out of this discussion.
Desiree Sogbavi is the Advocacy Advisor for Africa at the Open Society Foundation's OSF. In sport, the Court of Arbitration for Sports CAS has officially confirmed receipt of an appeal from the Senegalese Football Federation challenging the outcome of the Africa Cup of Nations AFCON Morocco 2025 final. In a media release issued from Lausanne on March 25, 2026, CAS stated that the appeal is directed against both the Confederation of African Football CAF and the Royal Moroccan Football Federation. The dispute stems from a CAF ruling on March 17, 2026, which declared that Senegal had forfeited the final, awarding a 3-0 victory to Morocco. CAS confirmed that an arbitral panel will be constituted to hear the case, after which a procedural timetable will be established. Understand that CAS procedures, the appellant is typically granted 20 days to submit a formal brief, while the respondents are afforded an additional 20 days to respond. However, CAS noted that given the early stage of proceedings and the FSF's request for suspend deadlines, it is not yet possible to determine when a hearing will take place. And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Mauro Jo for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone. In Nigeria on Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.